Hey, Staked Wealth back. Oh, I look terrible in this blown up image. I'm gonna put myself back in the corner. That's much better. As much as I love producing outdoor and good production videos, it unfortunately prevents me from making videos in time. And I regret not making a video about a pulse pot sacrifice period. So rather than leaving you out of the loop and hindering my ability to provide alpha, I'd rather at least shoot a video on my webcam sharing some alpha with. In my last video that I put out in May, I talked about my prediction about Hedron. I said that with the auction house nearing launch, it should lead to a lot of Hedron burning, which would then make the price appreciate. Unfortunately, at that time, I did not have the data on just how lucrative the auction house will be for Hedron at launch. So the launch was a little bit underwhelming as there was not a lot of encapsulated stakes that went on to the auction and not a lot of Hedron was burned. This was my original prediction. I thought that with the bonus multiplier phase ending and auction house launching, there would be a lot of hex stakes to liquidate and thus burn Hedron. Unfortunately, I was incorrect about 2.5 months ago, and when the second phase launched, there wasn't a lot of activity. But with the Icosa launch, it is going to lead to incentivizing people to lock up hex for as long as possible, sell those encapsulated stakes to the Icosa smart contract in exchange for Icosa tokens, which they can stake and acquire more Icosa tokens as well as Hedron that is taken from being able to borrow against the encapsulated stakes and let it go and let it get margin called. It would also incentivize the burning of Hedron tokens, making Hedron a lot more scarce and valuable. And then since then, we've seen this major pump, which in the past 50 days has done 1,000%, which is a 9x on your money if you bought it at the lows when Icosa was initially announced. Therefore, my price outlook should finally be realized as a major supply shock should lead to a major pump in Hedron, like I've roughly illustrated in this curved line. So, the second point about massive supply shock based on a potentially successful liquidated HSI auction launch was incorrect. And that's why I stressed putting in the word potential. But now with this Icosa mechanism, this should finally be realized. And this pump that we've seen so far is nothing to what we're going to see once Icosa launches. So buying even at a 9x since the announcement, I think is still a good opportunity. It's really difficult to see Hedron dump at this point. Now switching gears to likely why you clicked on this video, I'd like to introduce you to a really exciting upcoming project on Pulsechain, which similar to Icosa, which is like 3 layers separated from the core product being Hex. 3 layers from Pulsechain is a new token called UPTOKEN. So a little bit of background, the largest sacrifice for a Pulsechain project is LiquidLoans. It raised between $50 to $55 million. Essentially, it's going to empower Pulsechain token holders to extract value from their holdings whilst avoiding selling their underlying asset, being the Pulsechain. And similar to the real world, how people get wealthy is they get into good debt, right? They collateralize good assets, often yield producing assets, to borrow against for a low interest rate, and then use that money to fuel their lifestyle and pay their bills. They don't kill the golden goose, they let it appreciate while still extracting value and never needing to sell. The same should be possible in crypto. And LiquidLoans is going to make that possible for Pulsechain tokens. You can collateralize your Pulsechain tokens in order to extract the algorithmic stablecoin USDL, which in my humble opinion will be probably the most popular stablecoin on Pulsechain. It'll be backed by the Pulsechain and won't be centralized like USDC is. So in essence, the LiquidLoans product should eliminate sell pressure on Pulsechain, similar to how Hedron wants to be able to give you the utility to be able to extract value from encapsulated hex stakes and avoid the need of prematurely ending them or selling them. You should instead be able to borrow against it. And as the Hedron price reaches its fair value against a B share, the borrowable Hedron should become significant enough that it makes sense to do. Right now, obviously, the Hedron you can extract from your hex stakes at best could be worth a couple $100. But as Hedron closes the gap between its real value as intended to be a derivative of a B share, the money you should be able to extract becomes a lot more significant. On the Pulsechain side, LiquidLoans is an exciting project I was fortunate enough to sacrifice for. It's set to launch a few months after Pulsechain launches in order for the volatility to settle and start the opportunity for people to collateralize their Pulsechain tokens and extract algorithmic stablecoins, which some people in the LiquidLoans community have strategized interesting ideas to capitalize on this extraction model in order to be able to afford additional Pulsechain tokens with which they can continue to rinse and repeat as long as the price appreciates. And in theory, the price should appreciate if you have a lot of buy volume of people continually extracting stablecoin, buying Pulsechain, price goes up, again, extract value, buy Pulsechain, and rinse and repeat. So it's going to be an interesting model. And one of the forefront strategists, besides, I want to give a shout out to Red Squirrel, is Haunted. And Haunted came up with this active management strategy where, depending on the appreciation of Pulsechain, in order to collateralize a very conservative amount that should prevent you from getting liquidated in case of any dips, you can continue to rinse and repeating. You can watch this video to learn more about it. It's a really interesting strategy. And in essence, so as Pulsechain appreciates, let's say like this, obviously with peaks and valleys along the way, if you utilize one of the strategies such as Haunted's strategy, in theory, you should have a spread built up from the ROI. So you should end up with nearly doubling the returns on your Pulsechain, bag appreciation. Now comes this up token. It's by Haunted, who's one of the LiquidLoans team members, as well as one of the first strategists to have come up with an interesting mechanic to maximize LiquidLoans and be able to maximize your return for the Pulsechain appreciation. And he's come up with his up token in order for members to participate in a pool which utilizes the Haunted strategy in a very conservative way to utilize the profits from the Haunted strategy to be able to buy and burn its own token. In essence, if we're expecting Pulsechain to appreciate like this, utilizing one of the strategies of LiquidLoans could let you rinse and repeat and maximize your profits. So, it's like this with the spread constantly increasing. Kind of like, there's a spread against Maxi versus Hex. Holding Maxi is more valuable than Hex, but it's still correlated to the price of Hex. Whereas holding the up token could essentially lead to a price appreciation like this, right? Because instead of just having a linear spread, the profits are used to buy and burn the token. And as the token becomes more scarce, there's less of it to buy on the open market, and it becomes more valuable. So the reason why I bring this to your attention is if some of you had missed the Pulsechain sacrifice, if you had also missed the PulseX and LiquidLoans sacrifices, you could still gain exposure to the Pulsechain network and its potential price appreciation by participating in the up token, in my opinion. Again, there's no expectations of profit from this up token mechanism, but it's one of the bets I'm placing. Besides my primary holding of my Hex being staked for an average of 10 years, I'm utilizing some of the interest that's coming off stakes to deploy and put bets on up and coming projects that I feel have a good team behind them and a really interesting tokenomics. And up token is one of the ones that I'm most excited about. Besides Pulsepot, Icosa, I think up token has a really bright future ahead of it as long as things go according to plan. Now, the up token sacrifice begins this Saturday. It'll go on for 40 days, but if you join the Telegram group and look into the rules surrounding the sacrifice, you'll see that there's an early bird special where there's a pool A that's capped at 300,000. They'll limit it to 3,000 sacrificed per wallet, per address. So I recommend that, doing your due diligence as soon as possible and assessing your exposure to Pulsechain specifically. And though PulseX has good tokenomics of buying and burning, and if it just gets a fraction of the volume on Uniswap, it could lead to a lot of buying and burning and thus price appreciation. Though on the Pulsechain side, I wouldn't discount the pumpamentals that LiquidLoans is going to afford the community. The massive price appreciation could begin day one of LiquidLoans, as people can begin to extract value from their Pulsechain holdings and be able to buy more Pulsechain and rinse and repeat. Right now, there's nearly 10,000 members in the LiquidLoans Telegram group. If you assume 10% of them will utilize one of the strategies that are discussed within the group, that could lead to a lot of new buy pressure on Pulsechain from day one of LiquidLoans. Now, I haven't said this publicly, but I had actually not sacked for Pulsechain. It was during the time when I was dollar cost averaging into Hex, and I didn't feel like my Hex holdings had appreciated to the point where I felt comfortable parting ways with it. So instead, I drank the 𝙏𝙗𝙖𝙣𝙘𝙗 for the levels that Hex could potentially reach, and instead chose to hold on to my Hex. Obviously, in hindsight, would have been good to sacrifice even at 11 cents for Pulsechain, and now I'm making up for it by sacrificing into the UP token, which should be correlated to the utility of LiquidLoans, and thereafter the performance of the haunted strategy, which would then in turn buy and burn the UP token and lead to very attractive pumpamentals. There's no website for the UP token. Now's the time to do your due diligence. Check out who Haunted is, check out his interviews, check out his flowcharts and strategies, and join the Telegram group for the UP token to read the pinned messages on the systems, on the strategy that Haunted is planning to deploy using the sacrificed funds. Saturday morning, I have a timer set to participate as soon as the pool opens. I encourage anyone else to look into it, especially the ones that don't have sufficient exposure to Pulsechain, because UP token could be the exact pumpamental token you're looking for to be positively hedged with the potentially positive price performance of Pulsechain. And even if you missed it, you could still ride the wave on steroids, as the profits are going to be used to buy back the token and burn it and make it a lot more scarce. The sacrifice period will be open for 40 days. There's 2 pools, an early bird pool, and then one for everybody else. So hopefully this was informative. Do your own due diligence, not financial advice, but Icosa and UP token are both plays I want to make, as I feel like being a little bit late to Hex and missing the first 10,000x. I'd rather deploy the minority of my capital in my portfolio to hedge on these derivative plays of Pulsechain, especially the more risky ones that are now like 3 layers from the core product, but I feel have brilliant tokenomics. You have to have a little bit of imagination to really see where these things could be. But especially if you have a long time horizon and you're already staked for an average length in Hex, why not also have a piece of these other tokens if you plan to stick around in the ecosystem for at least the average length of a Hex stake? Now it's creeping up to be almost 7 years. Anyways, hope to speak to you guys soon. Thanks for watching this video.